everyone, it's Maria, and welcome to the Breaking Up with Toxicity podcast. Thank you for being with me today. Each week, I will connect with people as they share relatable life experiences. We will talk about and at times challenge reoccurring unhealthy and toxic patterns that keep you from the changes you want to see as you break these unhealthy cycles. So let's get started and see where this show will take us today. Be sure to listen and don't forget to follow so that you never miss an episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Breaking Up with Toxicity. I'm your host, Maria Shkreli, a licensed mental health therapist, an author, and someone who has spent years sitting with people on both sides of estrangement, people who walked away and people who were walked away from. And I want to start with something honest. Estrangement is not just about cutting someone off. Estrangement is psychological. Estrangement is emotional. Estrangement is sometimes a survival strategy, and sometimes it's a trauma response pretending to be healing. But lately, something concerning has been happening. Social media has turned estrangement into a trend at times, and that depends where you're reading it from and who it's coming from. What we hear pretty often: protect your peace, cut them off. You don't owe anyone anything. If the relationship is hard, it isn't healthy. And yes, while I understand why that resonates, many people were silenced, many never learned boundaries, many did live through chaos, manipulation, disrespect, or abuse. So reclaiming your power feels freeing, but here's the truth that rarely ever gets spoken about. Sometimes the estrangement is absolutely necessary. Sometimes estrangement is temporary. Sometimes it is overused. Sometimes estrangement is trauma that's not healing. And sometimes estrangement becomes emotional avoidance dressed up as self-care. So today we're going to slow down and really look at it. What estrangement actually is, the types with examples, why estrangement happens, how trauma shapes these decisions that are made, how social media narratives push people way too far. For example, the let them theory and when it harms people, how vulnerable people get hurt more by these messages, and how to think clearly before making these permanent choices. Because healing is not about following viral quotes. Healing is about awareness, accountability, clarity, compassion, and wisdom. So take a breath. We're going deep in this, but you know what? We're going grounded, and let's begin. What estrangement really is. So estrangement is not one single decision, and it's usually a process, and it can come from repeated hurt, emotional exhaustion, not feeling heard, failed attempts at repairing, a nervous system, what we call being overwhelmed, resentment building, or grief piling up. And it can be temporary, long term, it can be mutual, one sided, intentional, or actually even accidental. And unlike social media suggests, estrangement is not only relief, estrangement is grief, guilt, confusion, anger, loss, and even sometimes mixed with peace. Most people don't choose estrangement lightly. Those who choose it impulsively often spend years untangling it emotionally. So there are 5 main types of estrangement. The first one is called protective estrangement. And why this happens is this is where there's emotional abuse, there's constant disrespect, there's gaslighting, there's threats or intimidation, possibly even financial control, manipulation, and it can also consist of physical or sexual abuse. This pattern usually looks like you try to talk, you try to set the boundaries, you minimize your pain, and you hope that they'll change and that something breaks. So an example for this type of estrangement is a parent constantly humiliates their adult child, mocks their partner, criticizes just about every decision that they make, refuses counseling, and refuses boundaries. After years of trying, the adult child says, I cannot keep on doing this. I need distance. This is not punishment. This is actually protection. So what they're doing is taking care of safety, mental stability, and they're regulating themselves. So protective estrangement is absolutely valid, but it really should involve therapy, grief work, learning about boundaries. Otherwise, the pattern repeats in future relationships. The second one is boundary estrangement. This is not cutting someone off. This is restructuring the relationship. So why does this happen? This is when someone needs emotional space. They want healthier interactions. They still value the relationship, just not the dysfunction in the relationship. So for example, you love your parent, but every visit becomes a criticism. So instead of cutting them off, you visit less, you avoid certain topics, and you leave when the yelling or the chaos begins. This is not, I don't love you. This is, I love you, but I need to protect myself. Boundaries are clarity, they're not cruelty. So remember that. The third one is reactive or impulsive estrangement. This, unfortunately, is very common today. And why this happens? Because of emotional flooding, pride, fear of confrontation, insecurity, the need for instant relief, or it's actually influenced by social media messages. Yes, you heard me. Influenced by social media messages. Something hurts, you block, you disappear, you cut somebody off. There's no conversation. There's no attempt to repair. So, an example for this one is a friend doesn't respond fast enough. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? That bothered me. What you think is they don't care. I'm done. So you block them. It feels powerful to you, but it prevents maturity. And what this actually teaches you is when relationships become uncomfortable, guess what? I'm cutting you off. I'm leaving. That is not healing. That is avoidance pretending to be strength. The fourth one is narrative driven estrangement. This happens when online therapy talk shapes the story. So, why does this happen? It's overusing labels, it's diagnosing without context, and you're actually absorbing an influencer's narrative. So, suddenly, everyone's toxic, everybody's narcissistic, everyone's gaslighting. Sometimes those labels are accurate, but sometimes they're really misapplied. For example, someone's watching TikTok saying, if your partner criticizes you, they're abusive. Narcissists never change. You need to cut him off. Instead of trying therapy, education, communication, and their boundaries, they jump straight to goodbye forever, cut him off. Narratives decide, it's not the thought. So labels sometimes clarify, but they can also distort. So keep that in mind. The fifth one is estrangement from self. Before people disconnect from others, they often disconnect actually from themselves. And why this happens is because people pleasing, silence, minimizing emotions, ignoring their needs, and suppressing their identity. Eventually, what happens is they explode. I'm done with everyone. But the truth is that they abandoned themselves long before they abandoned the relationships. So healing begins by reconnecting to your voice, your needs, your limits, your emotions, and actually even your worth. Now, when it comes to how trauma chooses estrangement before you do, so most of us know trauma does live in our nervous system. It's not just a memory. Your body reacts before your mind actually understands. For example, I can't breathe. I have to leave. I'm shutting down. This feels too dangerous for me. Estrangement gives instant relief, and the brain learns leaving equals safety. But sometimes the body's reacting to old wounds, not the present danger. Healing doesn't remove all that discomfort. So the healing actually teaches you how to ground yourself, notice the triggers, communicate, assess safety accurately, set the boundaries without impulsively disconnecting with others. Now I'm going to talk about Mel Robbins' The Let Them theory. Mel Robbins' idea, let them, says, if people show you who they are, let them. Stop chasing, stop convincing, right? The intention is good. Stop overgiving, stop begging, stop trying to control people. But when social media rewrites it, that's when it becomes very dangerous. So, what people start hearing, don't communicate, don't repair, don't explain, and detach. Healthy relationships require uncomfortable honesty, repair conversations, mutual growth, and curiosity. So let them misused becomes numbness, not boundaries, and becomes dangerous. And to add on top of this, for people already struggling mentally, it can be really deeply harmful. So, how these trendy messages hurt people who are already struggling. The people most damaged by cut them off culture are often people with a lot of trauma, abandonment wounds, untreated anxiety or depression, borderline traits, people who already felt rejected or misunderstood, people who never learned good communication skills. They are not weak, they are wounded. When they hear just walk away, their brain hears disconnect, don't trust, stay alone, And here's what happens: it deepens the isolation for them, and the isolation worsens the mental health. So they withdraw, they stop trying, they stop talking, they stop showing up, and the depression whispers to them, see, nobody cares. But it's the isolation itself that's creating more of the pain. They never learn the emotional communication because leaving becomes the only tool. They miss learning, repair, emotional regulation, boundaries, negotiation, and tolerance for discomfort. Relationships become fragile, always breaking instead of bending. So while it validates trauma responses instead of healing them, trauma already says run, hide, block. And then you hear social media says, yes, exactly. And trauma stays stuck. So it creates this victim identity. Everything becomes proof. I'm always hurt. Everyone is toxic. Instead of what is my pattern? What needs healing? And what boundaries am I missing? It also creates a long term regret. Many people later say, I wish I slowed down. I wish I talked before cutting them off. I wish I didn't decide. I reacted. That pain sits really deep, which is why we slow down and we do not rush. So, challenging these negative narratives, we need to question the message like, strong people don't need anyone. No, healthy people build relationships differently, not disappear from them entirely. Healing is not becoming colder, or healing is becoming wiser. Here's an example: the parent who loves you but lacks emotional skills. Not abuse, they're just unskilled. Solution is let me put boundaries in plus education. Do not instantly cutting off. Here's another one: the partner who manipulates and repeatedly betrays trust. The patterns don't change here. Here, the distance actually may be truly necessary in this situation. Here is where understanding really does matter. Here are some questions before making any permanent decisions. You need to have clarity. What exactly hurts? The communication. Have I clearly said it? The nervous system. Is this fear or is it clarity? The boundaries. Have I tried them first? Reality. Is the pattern always harmful or sometimes repairable? The support. Have I explored therapy? The intention. Am I protecting myself or am I avoiding discomfort? Estrangement is very serious. Estrangement is not a trend overall. It's not empowerment quotes. It's not a lifestyle identity. Estrangement is layered. There's grief, there's loss, there's sadness, there's confusion, pain, and sometimes there is relief. Sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is to walk away. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do is stay, but stay differently. Healing is not who should I cut off. Healing is what keeps me safe, honest, grounded, and accountable without abandoning myself or disconnecting from other people. Move slowly when you're doing this and thinking about it. Reflect deeply. Get the support that you need. Be intentional. You deserve the clarity, not pressure from trending narratives deciding your relationships for you. Thank you for being here with me on Breaking Up with Toxicity. I'm Maria Shkreli, and I'll see you in the next episode.